Hello everyone and welcome back to another video. And today I want to talk about the latest individual poll in the most competitive states for 2024. Make sure to go ahead and drop a like, subscribe if you're new, make sure to follow the Twitter and join the Discord in the description down below. And so I've already filled out these states that are going to be decided by over 10 points or more in all of the pollings for the latest individual polls. For sake of time, this is my electoral college result. As of right now, Donald Trump is expected to win 325 electoral college votes to Joe Biden's 213. And that has been gathered up from my election model, which I will go over in a future video explaining in depth exactly how each state works so you guys can understand this. And so pretty much Illinois, a likely margin, Colorado, a likely margin in this election. Now, Illinois is actually listed as a, safe state. That's because the polling, has it above 10, for example, but my model has it within 10 points. Maine at large flips to Trump, Minnesota flips, Nebraska second, New Mexico, New Hampshire, pretty competitive in this scenario. Pennsylvania, the Rust Belt's a pretty big victory. But for the sake of the video, we are going to be looking at the latest poll out of all these states, and I'm going to be going from west to east. And so pretty much the first state we're actually going to look at is the state of Washington. Now, I know you guys might be like, well, Washington, Biden won that by like 20 points last time. But the latest poll with third-party candidates actually has Trump winning it by 5 percentage points, which only has 250 registered voters. Now, do I think it's going to vote 5 points to Trump? Probably not. But the latest poll does indicate that Donald Trump would actually win the state of Washington by 5 points with third-party candidates, which is actually insane because even compared to most of the polling, that means Washington would trend to the left of Oregon and like the Rust Belt by like a few points. Like, it would be pretty crazy if Washington did actually flip. But as of right now, my suspicion is that they didn't even pull the Seattle area that well, and so that's why you see a really big victory. It is a little weird for political pundits like us to see Washington as such a, basically almost a likely Republican state in the polling, but that is what the latest poll indicates. The next state on here is going to be the state of Nevada, where Donald Trump in the latest poll is actually winning by 13 percentage points. That actually puts the state in the safe Republican column, believe it or not. And it's because I'm actually using plus 10 as the safe margin for all of my states. And Nevada's lead in the New York Times / Siena College poll is actually pretty massive. And when you actually add third-party candidates, Donald Trump's winning by 14 points. So this may be an indication that Donald Trump is well within the margin of error and could very well possibly win the electoral college points from Nevada pretty easily this cycle. Not by 13, I wouldn't think so, but possibly by around 9 points. That's currently what my model actually has it right now. My model actually has it as a pretty big victory. It's almost as Republican as North Carolina. This may be due to the fact that Hispanic voters are probably being oversampled here, since they are shifting to Donald Trump in really great numbers. That may be what's going on in Nevada, but we will find out on election day. The next state's going to be Arizona, which, Biden did win it in 2020, but I actually think that Donald Trump is, according to 538, he's within the margin of error, but according to RCP, he isn't. And even if you averaged out his RCP lead, which is 5.6, and this lead, he'd still be outside the margin of error. The latest poll indicates from New York Times / Siena College that he'd actually be winning by 9 points with third-party voters. That puts the state in the likely Republican column. Now, I know you guys noticed I've left Hawaii open. You're probably like, what? You're crazy. Why'd you leave Hawaii open? The latest poll with third-party candidates actually indicates that he'd be winning Hawaii. Biden would only win Hawaii by 8 points with third-party candidates, which is huge. And that actually puts the state in the likely column for Joe Biden. That is basically the first poll we got out of the state. And this is a pretty crazy sight to see that Hawaii, even with a low sample size, is this competitive. A low sample size should actually make it more Democrat, but it doesn't. And Donald Trump's cracking around 34% there. Now, do I think he's going to win it? Definitely not. I don't think he's going to win Hawaii, but it could potentially get within 15. Right now, the model has it as a 13-point win. So I think it could get within 15, possibly within 20 is more realistic. But the latest poll shows that he is winning it by 8 points. If we look at the next state, on the map, which would be Colorado, what's actually interesting is that Biden's actually doing really great in the latest poll. He's actually winning it by 10 points. Now, polls with a larger sample size like Emerson College have it closer. This, Florida FAU poll has it within 4, so it's kind of weird, but the latest poll does have it as a 10-point victory. So Biden would be winning it in the safe Democratic column. The next state's going to be the state of New Mexico. And what's actually interesting is that the latest poll has it as an 8-point win for Biden. Now, this is a poll from New Mexico. Another poll would show Biden ahead by 11. But you got to understand the polling error in New Mexico in favor of Biden is way greater than the one in Colorado. And so it could be the case that it does vote to the right of Colorado by a few points. That is right now, it is an 8-point victory in New Mexico. The white vote also keeps this very Democrat, and I do expect the white vote to shift to the left by a couple points nationally from 2020. So I do actually think that that may in fact end up keeping the state, probably not as big of a victory as 2020, but if the white vote shifted right nationally, this state would be a lot more competitive because I do think Hispanics are going to shift pretty Republican here. We're going to be going from the south all the way up to the Rust Belt states. The next state we're going to be looking at is the state of Georgia, where Donald Trump enjoys a pretty good lead in the aggregate, actually. He's actually leading there, pretty comfortably, well outside the margin of error here. But the latest poll from New York Times has him winning it by 8 with third-party candidates. That puts the state in the likely Republican column. He is very well easily winning the election in Georgia as of right now, which is a state that he even lost in 2020. And now he's polling outside the margin of error, which is pretty crazy to see. My model actually has it as a 7.7 percentage point victory. If we go to North Carolina, we're going to see that the state is very peculiar, very similarly to Georgia. And in the latest poll with third party candidates, he is actually winning it by 5 percentage points. And with all the party candidates, almost all of them, here we go. Here's the poll. He's actually winning it by 9 with all third party candidates. And so if we go ahead and plug that in, he is currently winning the state by a likely margin, which does actually match my results. I mean, that does match what my model is showing. My model is showing around a 10.8 percentage point victory for Donald Trump in the state. Virginia, we're going to look at that poll. What's pretty interesting is that it is looking to be a little bit more competitive than we expected. The latest poll has Biden up by 4 in a head to head, and with third party candidates, Biden's actually ahead by 3 percentage points. So that actually puts the state well within the margin of error, which Biden won this by 10 points in 2020. So the fact it's even within the margin of error is pretty nuts. New Jersey is another state that everyone's like, whoa, why'd you leave New Jersey up? It's because if you go over here, you can see that in the latest poll with third party candidates from March, Biden is up by 5 points. And if you look at the crosstabs here with Biden's percentage and Trump, Biden would theoretically be up by 8 points. And so if you're to look at that, that's only a likely margin in the electoral college, and not even like a 9-point likely margin. It's like a 5-point. So it's basically just as Democrat as Virginia was in 2016, which is pretty nuts to say that it's gotten that close. And it's also very fascinating that Hawaii, New Mexico, and New Jersey are almost voting in line with each other nationally, according to the polling data. Now, Donald Trump's already won the election because he has Washington very easily in his column for whatever reason. If we look at New Hampshire, we're going to see that Biden in the latest poll with third party candidates is actually only up by 3 points. And if you look at the Kennedy crosstabs, he's only up by 1 point. And so that actually puts the state in the lean category. They have not updated the aggregate, and a lot of polling hasn't been done here, but I suspect it is going to be a little bit closer. My model actually has it as a tilt victory for Biden as of right now. If we look at Maine at large, my model has Trump winning it. But what's interesting is that Donald Trump in the aggregate is actually up. 6-point victory in the state, according to this poll. 1-point victory for Biden in the state. You know, all the way back, in 2022, Biden was up by 11, but this got cut down to a 1-point victory in November, February. He's up by 6 now. And if you look at the Kennedy crosstabs, Trump's actually up by 2. So if you were to average this out, he'd theoretically be up by like 4 points. So that actually puts the state in the lean category. And now we've come to the Rust Belt states. But before we do the Rust Belt, I am going to do Nebraska second, which in fact, there's only one poll out of a Nebraska second district, and it is with Donald Trump, and with third party candidates, he's leading it by 3. And what's actually interesting about this is that it's from the independent candidate polling firm, which is really interesting because they're running against the Republican. And so the fact that Donald Trump's leading by 3 in a push poll for an independent candidate trying to beat a Republican does actually say a lot about Nebraska second. It may easily flip Republican more than we actually expect. It has been redistricted to be more Republican this year, but according to the latest poll, it is a lean margin. If we look at Minnesota, well, actually, we'll do Wisconsin first. Donald Trump in the latest poll from New York Times is up by 1. You know, this state was close in 2020, and polling suggests that it is going to be closer once again. So that does put the state in the lean Republican column. If we go ahead and go to the state of Michigan, we're going to see that Donald Trump in the state is actually losing in the latest New York Times / Dana College poll by 3 percentage points with all third party candidates. And so that actually puts, what's actually quite interesting is that if you look at the registered voter polls, Donald Trump's actually doing way better here. And the likely voter samples actually have Biden doing better. So that's also pretty interesting as well. And so that indicates that the higher turnout there is, the more likely Trump's going to win by a bigger margin. And if we look, he is losing by 3 in the latest poll. So that does put the state of Michigan in the lean column. If we look at the state of Pennsylvania, we're going to see that Donald Trump is in fact ahead by 3 percentage points with a head-to-head matchup. And with, third-party candidates, he is up by 4 points. So Pennsylvania is actually his largest lead, which is quite interesting. And Donald Trump has reached 312 electoral college votes despite losing Michigan, which is quite hilarious. And if we look at the latest poll in Minnesota, which is the final state we have to mark down for this video, Biden in the latest poll is up by 2 points. And so that does put the state in the lean Democratic column. Now, the final electoral college count is Donald Trump with 312 electoral votes to Biden 226. However, the map is looking a little bit funny because we do have Washington going red. We have Hawaii within basically single digits. We have Maine at large going red, but not Michigan going red. So it is a pretty interesting polling map. But this is what the latest polls indicate for every single one of the competitive states in 2024. Make sure to go ahead and like the video, subscribe to the channel, and make sure to go ahead and follow the Twitter and join the Discord in the description down below. And I will see you guys very, very soon.